The first time I saw Logan Bennett truly panic, he was standing beneath a stone archway at the Met cloisters, with rain dripping from the edge of his black wool coat, and one hand wrapped around the wedding ring I had returned to him that morning. That was not, for the record, how I had imagined my attempt to become a mature husband ending. I had pictured something dignified. Perhaps Logan would receive the velvet ring box at his Manhattan office, glance at the note I had tucked beneath the ring, and think, good, Elliot is finally learning boundaries. Maybe he would even smile in relief before returning to whichever billion-dollar acquisition had swallowed his calendar that week. Instead, he had apparently left a strategy dinner halfway through dessert, abandoned 2 senior bankers from J.P. Morgan Chase, ignored his chief of staff, driven uptown through a storm, and walked into a museum fundraiser looking like a man who had misplaced oxygen. The Gothic hall around us glowed with amber light. Medieval tapestries climbed the stone walls. Candles flickered in tall glass lanterns, their reflections shaking across the polished floor while rain whispered against the old windows. Guests in black tie had gone very still. So had I. Logan was 32, an alpha CEO with the sort of face magazines like to describe as severe and the sort of shoulders tailors probably complained about privately. He was the founder of Bennett Atlantic, a cloud security company headquartered in Boston with offices in New York, Seattle, and Austin. His hair was usually immaculate. Tonight it was damp and disordered, one dark strand falling over his forehead. His gray eyes were fixed on me, not on Mason Reed, the alpha, standing beside me, not on the champagne in my hand, not on the donors pretending they were not listening. Me. Why? Logan asked quietly. Did you send this back? He opened his hand. My ring lay against his palm. My stomach dropped. Mason shifted beside me. Mason Reed, 30, was the polished heir to a Boston real estate family and an old friend of the body I had transmigrated into. He had the carefully relaxed smile of a man who had never once been told a reservation was unavailable. Logan, I said, lowering my voice. We can talk somewhere private. No, the word was not loud. It did not need to be. Logan stepped closer, and the air changed with him. His alpha scent, cedar, cold rain, something darker beneath it, rolled through the space in a controlled wave. Not threatening, never that, but raw enough that my omega instincts stirred awake under my skin. He stopped an arm's length away. I asked you this morning if you were coming home tonight, he said. You said you had plans. I did. You stopped coming to my office. I swallowed. You moved your clothes into the guest dressing room. That was because you canceled Sunday breakfast with me. I opened my mouth. He kept going. You haven't climbed into my lap in 12 days. You haven't stolen my coffee in 9. You haven't called me during a meeting just to ask whether I miss you since last Tuesday. A few people nearby lowered their wine glasses. I wished the medieval floor would open and politely bury me beneath a monastery. Logan's expression did not change, but his voice roughened. And now you send me your wedding ring with a note saying you think I deserve space. My fingers tightened around the champagne flute. This was not how this conversation was supposed to go. I had done everything correctly. I had stopped being clingy. I had stopped demanding his attention. I had stopped sleeping with my face pressed against his chest like an emotionally unstable scarf. I had even resisted asking where he was when his flight from Seattle landed 2 hours late, which should have earned me a medal from the American Psychological Association. I was saving our marriage. So why did my alpha husband look as if I had just informed him that marriage itself had been discontinued? Logan, I said carefully, I'm trying not to suffocate you anymore. His face went blank. Behind that blankness, something cracked. Suffocate me? Yes, Elliot. I know I've been excessive. His eyes narrowed. I know I follow you around. I know I interrupt meetings. I know I get jealous. I know I once sent your executive assistant a 3-page questionnaire about the seating arrangement at a client dinner. That was color-coded. It was organized. It was terrifying. Exactly. I pointed at him with the champagne glass. See? Growth. We agree. For half a second, something almost like disbelief crossed his face. Then he looked at Mason. His jaw tightened. And becoming less clingy requires spending Friday night with him? Mason made the mistake of smiling. It's a museum fundraiser, I said quickly, not a date. Logan looked back at me. The hand holding my ring closed slowly. Do you want a divorce? The question struck so hard that all the noise in the hall seemed to vanish. My breath caught. What? If you want one, he said, and for the first time since I had known his face, first on a screen, then for 12 bewildering days in person. I saw fear in his eyes. Say it while looking at me. The room blurred at the edges. His next words were barely audible, but don't keep disappearing from my life one habit at a time and expect me not to notice. My heart did something complicated and medically irresponsible. Then Logan stepped closer, lowered his head until only I could hear him, and whispered, "Tell me what I did wrong before I lose my mind." And that was the moment I realized I might have misunderstood the entire story. Unfortunately, to explain how badly I had misunderstood it, I have to go back 12 days. Back to the morning I woke up married to the man I had spent 300 pages believing would eventually divorce me. And before I rewind, if you enjoy romances where the calm, powerful one turns out to be the most hopelessly attached, stay with me. If stories like this are your kind of escape, follow the channel so you can find the next one easily. No pressure. For now, just keep me company while I explain how I managed to mistake devotion for impending divorce in less than 2 weeks. In my previous life, my name had also been Elliot. That felt lazy on the universe's part, but I appreciated the administrative convenience. I was Elliot Parker, 27, a museum archivist and paper conservator in Chicago. I spent my days repairing old letters, cataloging manuscripts, and telling interns not to touch 16th century parchment with bare hands. My romantic life consisted mainly of reheated pasta and a fern named Benedict that had survived 3 apartment moves and 1 radiator leak. Then, one Thursday night, I stayed late at work digitizing a private collection, fell asleep at my desk with my cheek on a stack of accession forms, and woke up in a bed large enough to qualify as residential property. The first thing I noticed was the ceiling. Dark carved beams crossed white plaster like something from a Tudor manor. The second thing I noticed was the alpha sleeping beside me. He was enormous, not grotesquely enormous, more like unfairly, offensively well-proportioned. Broad shoulders beneath a white shirt, dark lashes, strong hands resting over the duvet, a face I recognized immediately from the cover art of a serialized Omegaverse romance I had hate-read during lunch breaks. Logan Bennett, alpha CEO, cold husband, future divorce plaintiff. I sat up so fast I nearly headbutted the headboard. Logan's eyes opened, gray, very awake. "Elliot?" I stared at him. He stared at me. My brain opened several emergency tabs at once. The body I had transmigrated into belonged to Elliot Hale, 24, Omega heir to the Hale family, old Boston money, educated mostly by private tutors. Beautiful enough to make strangers forget what they were saying mid-sentence, and emotionally attached to his husband with the intensity of industrial adhesive. His memories were not a library I could browse whenever I pleased. They were loose pages. A scent could bring back a breakfast. A familiar room could leave a habit in my hands. A name might carry warmth or irritation without telling me why. The important memories were often the hardest to reach, buried until something specific tugged them loose. It was less like inheriting a diary and more like living in a house where half the drawers opened only when they felt like it. In the novel, Elliot Hale was a supporting character, a memorable one. He appeared in chapters as Logan Bennett's spoiled, jealous husband, calling during board meetings, rearranging office staff based on pheromone compatibility, refusing to attend social events unless Logan held his hand, and once ordering a florist to remove white roses from a banquet because a male Omega had complimented Logan beside them. I had found him hilarious, from a safe distance, in someone else's body. Now I was him. And according to the last chapter I remembered reading, Logan eventually grew tired of the suffocating marriage and filed for divorce after Bennett Atlantic became powerful enough to no longer need Hale family connections. The novel had been on hiatus after that cliffhanger, which meant I had transmigrated directly into the emotional equivalent of a building with a gas leak. "Are you sick?" Logan asked. His hand touched my forehead, warm, careful. My Omega body reacted before my new brain could issue a permit. Something low in my chest loosened. The scent of cedar and rain settled around me, steady and familiar in a way that made absolutely no logical sense. I jerked back. Logan's hand froze in the air. His expression changed so slightly I almost missed it. "Sorry," he said. That confused me more than anything. The cold alpha CEO from the novel was apologizing because I had flinched. "I'm fine," I said. My voice sounded softer than my old one. Pretty, even when panicked, extremely inconvenient. Logan studied me for another second, then glanced at the clock. "I moved my first meeting." "Why?" "You were restless all night." "Oh. I thought you might be coming into heat." I nearly inhaled my own tongue. "I'm not. One corner of his mouth moved. Good. You look like you're considering climbing out the window. We're on the 3rd floor. I know, that seems unsafe. I'm relieved you agree. I stared. Was Logan Bennett making a joke? The novel had failed to mention he possessed humor. This felt like false advertising. He got out of bed, buttoned the cuffs of his shirt, and crossed toward the dressing room. Morning light followed him across the oak floor. Beyond the tall windows, Beacon Hill was pale with February snow. Brick townhouses lined the street below, their black iron railings dusted white. The house itself was not medieval, obviously. Boston had standards. But the Hales had renovated it with such aggressive old-world taste that every corridor contained carved arches, antique wood, leaded glass, or a portrait of someone who looked disappointed in modern electricity. It suited the strange romance of this world. A modern America with alpha CEOs, omega socialites, biometric security, private jets, and dining rooms that looked prepared for a duke to arrive by horse. Logan paused at the dressing room door. Breakfast in bed? I remembered the novel. Original Elliot demanded it every morning. No, Logan turned. I smiled too brightly. I can eat downstairs. He looked at me for so long I began to wonder whether I had accidentally violated a treaty. Downstairs, he repeated. Yes, with a plate? That is traditionally how breakfast works. His eyes narrowed. Then he disappeared into the dressing room. I exhaled. Excellent. Step 1, stop clingy. Step 2, become independent. Step 3, prevent divorce. Simple. By 8:30 that morning, I had already failed in ways I did not understand. Breakfast was served in a narrow sunroom overlooking a courtyard garden buried under snow. I arrived prepared to demonstrate maturity. Logan was already there, reading messages on a tablet. A navy suit replaced his white shirt, sharp enough to cut through quarterly earnings. Beside his elbow sat black coffee. In front of my usual chair was a plate of French toast with berries, maple syrup, and exactly 3 slices of pear arranged in a fan. I knew, with the unreasonable certainty of inherited memory, that Logan had made it himself. The household employed a chef. Of course it did. Apparently, original Elliot had once declared that food prepared by anyone except his husband tasted emotionally unavailable. I sat down. Logan looked up. You came downstairs. So did you. I usually do. Then we already have something in common. His mouth twitched. I picked up my fork. Normally, original Elliot would have held the fork toward Logan until Logan sighed, cut the first bite, dipped it in syrup, and fed him. I was not doing that. I was an independent adult. I could operate cutlery. I had a master's degree in library and information science in my previous life. I was also, as a matter of principle, opposed to unnecessary effort before 9 in the morning. Independence was admirable. Stairs before coffee were a design flaw. Admittedly, that qualification had never specifically covered French toast, but I felt confident. I cut a piece and ate it myself. Logan lowered his tablet. I chewed. Do I have syrup on my face? No. Then why are you staring? You're feeding yourself. I set down the fork. This is a strange marriage. Yes, he said. I like it. The words landed quietly. For one ridiculous second, warmth spread under my ribs. I reminded myself that Logan was probably being polite. A man who ran a cybersecurity company worth billions understood diplomacy. He could probably tell someone their building was on fire in a tone that made them feel complimented. His phone vibrated. He checked it, then rose. I have a meeting at the Boston office with a delegation from IBM at 10. Dinner may run late. Inherited jealousy flashed through me like a match. Who's going? I asked automatically. Logan paused. I closed my eyes. Wonderful. 8 minutes into independence and the old body had seized the steering wheel. I corrected myself. Actually, never mind. You don't need to report your guest list to me. Logan went still. The silence lasted long enough that I looked up. His face had become unreadable. Don't I? No. You asked yesterday. I'm trying something new. What? Being normal. His eyebrows moved a fraction. I could not tell whether that offended him. I continued before courage escaped. And I won't come to your office today. His gaze sharpened. Original Elliot went to Bennett Atlantic almost every afternoon. He kept slippers in Logan's private office. Slippers. He had a drawer of snacks, a throw blanket, a phone charger, 2 cardigans, and apparently 1 emergency silk eye mask. His presence there was less visiting spouse and more small domestic occupation. You have a headache? Logan asked. No. Are you upset with someone? No. With me? No. Then why aren't you coming? Because your fictional character page practically had divorce due to excessive attachment engraved on it. Because I have my own life, I said. That sounded excellent, empowered, modern, the sort of sentence that belonged in a relationship podcast. Logan stared at me as if I had announced I was joining a monastery. Then he picked up his coat. Right. He came around the table. My body expected him before I did. My chin tipped up. My pulse changed. Logan always kissed original Elliot before leaving. I knew that from memory, too. Forehead, then temple, then mouth if Elliot tugged on his tie. Logan stopped beside my chair. For one unbearable second, he waited. I did not tug his tie. I did not raise my face. I forced myself to inspect the French toast as if it contained a coded message. The air between us thinned. Finally, Logan placed 2 fingers lightly against my hair. Call me if you need anything. Then he left. The front door closed 3 rooms away. My chest hurt. This was absurd. I had known the man for approximately 45 minutes. My body, unfortunately, had spent 2 years married to him. It missed him with insulting efficiency. Pathetic, I told the pear slices. They offered no defense. At 11, Caleb Foster arrived without knocking. Caleb was 28, a beta, Elliot Hale's childhood friend, and communications director for a Boston Arts foundation. He was compact, sharp-eyed, and dressed in a camel coat expensive enough to have opinions. He stopped when he saw the books spread around me. Oh my God, you're reading voluntarily. I resent the surprise. Where's Logan? Work? And you're not at Bennett Atlantic? No. Caleb sat opposite me as if preparing for an intervention. Inherited memory supplied a warm, exasperated familiarity. He had spent years trying to convince original Elliot to develop hobbies that did not involve Logan's location. Do you think I'm too clingy? I asked. Caleb nearly inhaled his coffee. Is this a trap? No. He wiped his eyes. You once called me at 2 a.m. because Logan slept with his back facing you for 20 minutes. Oh, and you printed his travel calendar on embossed linen paper. I covered my face. His laughter softened. You love him. That part isn't wrong. But you need things that are yours too. Friends, work, interests. A marriage needs air. The words were reasonable and dangerously close to the novel's setup. His company doesn't need my family anymore, I admitted. What if he leaves? Caleb's expression changed. Elliot, I was at your wedding. Logan looked at you during the vows like someone had handed him the moon and warned him not to drop it. My throat tightened. So yes, Caleb said. Build a life. No. Do not turn yourself into a Victorian ghost because you're scared. I glanced at the carved paneling. This house does support haunting. That is not the point. But he had given me one, a life of my own. I knew where to start. The Boston Athenaeum, old manuscripts, archives, paper that needed saving, the things I had loved before becoming Elliot Hale. By noon, through Hale family philanthropy and Elliot's previous museum benefit connections, I had arranged a meeting with Special Collections about supervised volunteer work. For the first time that morning, I felt lighter. This was healthy. This was how I would save my marriage. The Boston Athenaeum smelled like old paper, polished wood, warm dust, and every good decision I had ever made. I nearly cried in front of a 19th century bust. The conservation room was smaller than my old workplace in Chicago, but the tools were familiar: bone folders, Japanese tissue, magnifying lamps, humidity controls. My hands remembered before my mind had time to panic. For 3 hours, I forgot I lived inside a romance novel. I simply worked. The head conservator, Dr. Renee Walsh, was a 51-year-old beta with silver hair, practical shoes, and no interest in my family name. She cared whether I understood wheat starch paste and whether I could distinguish mold staining from foxing. I could, which created a problem. On paper, Elliot Hale had never trained as a conservator. You've done this before, she said. Not in a way I can put on a resume. Dr. Walsh studied me, then placed a damaged facsimile and practice materials on the table. Show me. So I did. I humidified a crease, aligned torn fibers under magnification, mixed paste to the right consistency, and repaired the sample without drowning it in tissue. When I finished, she examined the page from 3 angles. Interesting. Apparently that was conservator language, for I am not throwing you out. She would not let me near valuable material unsupervised. Instead, she offered a volunteer schedule with assessments, training, and documentation. Earn your way back into it, she said. I liked her immediately. When I stepped into the reading room afterward, snow was falling beyond the tall windows. Logan Bennett was waiting beneath a portrait of George Washington. I stopped. He looked up from his phone. What are you doing here? Meeting. At the Athenaeum? Yes. What kind? A meeting-shaped meeting. I folded my arms. His mouth almost smiled. Your IBM meeting was downtown. It ended, and then you coincidentally came here. Yes, Logan, Elliot. He glanced toward the conservation room. You were working? Yes. You look happy. The observation caught me off guard. I am. He nodded once. Good. No mockery. No irritation that I had found something outside him. Just simple approval. My chest warmed. Then a voice called, Elliot. Daniel Morgan approached, carrying 2 archive boxes. Daniel was 31, an alpha historian who taught part-time at Boston University and consulted on private collections. He was friendly, scholarly, and enthusiastic about book curses in the way only a historian could be. I found the 1894 inventory, he said. You were right about the missing folio. Seriously? Come look. I took one step. Logan's hand settled at the small of my back. It was not rough or dramatic, but every nerve in my body noticed. Daniel noticed too. Daniel, this is my husband. Logan Bennett. Daniel offered his hand. Good to meet you. Logan shook it. Is it? I stared at him. Daniel blinked. Then Logan gave him a perfect corporate smile. I'm kidding. He was not. His cedar scent had sharpened. Daniel wisely laughed and retreated. I turned to Logan. Was that jealousy? No. That was fast. I'm efficient. Your scent changed. Building ventilation. I stared until he picked up my coat. Dinner? You had a client dinner. I canceled it. Why? He held my coat open. Because you were here. The answer was so simple that I forgot to move. Is that normal for you? I asked. His gaze held mine. More than you think. That should have warned me. Instead, I let him take me to dinner. Snow feathered through Beacon Hill. Gas-style lamps glowed over narrow brick streets, and Logan kept our gloved fingers linked as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I told myself I should pull away. Independence, boundaries. Air. I did not. At a small Italian restaurant near Charles Street, he ordered my favorite pasta without asking. You remembered. You order it every time. Still. He looked almost confused by the compliment. After a while he asked, why manuscripts? Because paper made sense when people did not. Because repairing a torn page felt like proof that damage did not erase meaning. I chose the safer answer. I like fixing old things. Things? Books, letters, maps, not husbands? I nearly dropped my fork. Was that another joke? Possibly. You've hidden an alarming amount of personality from the narrator. What narrator? Nothing. He watched me eat, then said quietly, You don't have to fix yourself for me. My fork stopped. You've been different since yesterday, he continued. If this is about something I did, tell me. I'm trying to grow up. Why? Society generally approves. I don't remember marrying society. A real laugh escaped me. His expression softened immediately. There it was, the first crack in the story I thought I knew. Logan did not look relieved when I gave him distance. He looked relieved when I laughed with him. He reached across the table and brushed sauce from the corner of my mouth. His thumb lingered. My breath caught. His eyes dropped to my lips. Then he pulled back too quickly. The old fear returned. He could enjoy my company without wanting me physically. He could care for me and still intend to leave gently. That night I slept with 6 careful inches between us. At 2:13 a.m. I woke and found Logan staring at the ceiling. His hand rested on the mattress between us, close enough to touch, but not touching. As if he had reached halfway and stopped, I pretended to be asleep. So did he. Over the next 4 days I became excellent at giving Logan space. Logan unfortunately seemed determined to occupy it anyway. Monday the Athenaeum received lemon cakes, Earl Grey tea, and a note in his handwriting. You forget lunch when you work. Don't. Tuesday, after a conservation lecture at Harvard, he texted to offer the car. I can take the tea, I wrote. You hate changing trains in the cold. Annoyingly correct. I supported independence. I did not support freezing for symbolism. Fine. Transportation, not surrender, of course. Wednesday, he appeared in the conservation room with coffee. You have an office, I said. So do you now. I have a chair. Close enough. Dr. Walsh looked over her glasses. Mr. Bennett, if you breathe on that 18th century letter, I'll remove you. Logan stepped back immediately. A man who intimidated investors across 3 time zones had just been defeated by archival authority. I treasured the information. Thursday brought the first real problem. Caleb invited me to a winter arts benefit at the Boston Public Library. It'll be good for you, he said over the phone. People, friends, art, a room where no one cares about Logan's quarterly guidance. Will Logan be there? No, I hesitated. That's why you should go. He was right, probably. I wore a dark green suit with a soft cream shirt, left my scent blockers light, and went alone. The library's grand staircase glowed beneath chandeliers. Music floated through marble halls. Guests gathered beneath painted ceilings with champagne and donor badges. For the first hour, I did something miraculous. I enjoyed myself. And then Mason Reed appeared. Mason was the kind of alpha original Elliot's parents had once expected him to marry. Old money, immaculate manners, excellent teeth. He had known Elliot since adolescence and had spent years behaving like patient inevitability. "Elliot Hale," he said warmly. "You escaped the fortress." I blinked. "The fortress? Logan." "That is a person. Debitable." Mason offered me a glass of sparkling water. "He never liked me. In fairness, you're speaking about him like a medieval tax system." Mason laughed. He was easy company. That was dangerous mainly because I could see exactly how original Elliot might once have used him to provoke Logan. I had no such intention. We discussed museums. Mason's family foundation was considering funding conservation training in Rhode Island. I mentioned Newport and the Preservation Society. He asked whether I wanted to visit a private collection next month. "Maybe," I said. A familiar scent touched the air behind me. Cedar, cold rain, trouble. I closed my eyes. "Don't tell me." Mason looked past my shoulder. "I won't." I turned. Logan stood 10 feet away in a black suit, speaking to a library trustee while looking directly at Mason's hand. Mason's hand was resting on the back of my chair, not on me, not near me, on furniture. Logan looked personally offended by the chair. Caleb appeared at my side. "Oh," he whispered. "This will be educational. I thought you said Logan wasn't invited." "He wasn't. How is he here?" "He donated to the Restoration Fund 20 minutes ago." I stared at Caleb. "How much?" Caleb winced. "Enough that they may name a staircase after him." Logan finished his conversation and approached. Elliot, Logan, Mason, Logan. The two alphas exchanged the sort of smiles that made me understand why diplomacy required treaties. I crossed my arms. "What are you doing here?" Logan glanced at the ceiling. "Supporting libraries. You hated the annual report I left on your desk." "I've changed." "You changed in 20 minutes?" "I'm agile." Caleb coughed into his fist. Mason smiled. "I was just inviting Elliot to see a collection in Newport." Logan's gaze moved to me. "When?" "Next month," I said. "I'll come." Mason tilted his head. "It's a conservation trip. I support conservation." "You don't know what foxing is," I said. "I'll learn." My omega instincts purred at his interest. My rational mind was less easily bribed. "Logan, can I speak to you?" He followed me beneath an archway off the main hall. I turned on him. "You donated to a library because Mason was talking to me?" "No." "Then why?" "Because public institutions matter." "You said that like you memorized it from a brochure." He looked away. I stared. A shocking possibility bloomed. "You are jealous." His jaw flexed. "Of Mason? You tell me. He has a face I dislike." "That is not a denial. I dislike many faces." "Logan." He exhaled through his nose. Then, unexpectedly, the humor disappeared. His eyes met mine. "Do you like him?" The question was too quiet. Something in it pulled at me. "No." His shoulders loosened by a degree. I noticed. He noticed me noticing. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Logan reached out and straightened my cuff. "I had a terrible day," he said. I blinked. "What happened?" "Nothing." "Then why was it terrible?" "You didn't call me." The entire library seemed to tilt. "You used to call before lunch, sometimes during lunch. Usually after lunch because you forgot what you called about before lunch." A laugh escaped me. His fingers stilled against my wrist. "I spent all afternoon checking my phone," he admitted. There it was, not a confession, not yet. But the truth landed before I was ready for it. Logan did not merely tolerate my attention, he missed it. Badly. My heart softened before fear could stop it, so I did something reckless. I took his hand. His eyes dropped to our fingers. "Do you want me to call tomorrow?" I asked. His gaze lifted. "Yes. Use your judgment. That sounds dangerous. I'm aware. 5?" His thumb brushed my knuckles. 7. I laughed again. This time, Logan smiled. Not the thin corporate smile from photographs. A real one, soft, young, almost shy. My chest tightened. This man was supposed to divorce me. Instead, he was bargaining for phone calls beneath a Renaissance-style arch while a string quartet played nearby. Maybe the novel had been wrong, or maybe I was changing it. Either way, I went home with Logan that night. In the car, he held my hand the entire way. I let him. At home, things became easier. Not simple, but easier. I stopped forcing distance every second. I sat beside Logan on the sofa instead of across the room. He immediately pulled my feet into his lap as if reclaiming territory. I stole his coffee again. He looked so pleased I almost felt offended. One evening, I returned from work to find a small antique writing desk installed beside the windows in Logan's study. "What is that?" "Desk." I can see that. For you. Why? So you can work here if you want. I stared at it. The desk was 19th century walnut, restored but not overpolished, with shallow drawers perfect for pencils, notes, and conservation references. You bought me furniture, so I'll stay near you while being independent. Yes, that is manipulative. Yes, at least you're honest. He opened his laptop. I'm learning. I sat at the desk. He relaxed visibly. That should have been another warning. Instead, I spent the evening researching paper fibers while Logan reviewed security reports. Our feet touched beneath the shared rug. Every so often he reached over without looking and rested his hand on my knee for a few seconds, as if checking I was still there. I began to understand how intimacy could live in ordinary gestures, not declarations, not desperate kisses. A cup of tea placed beside my elbow. A coat warmed near the radiator before I left the house. Logan remembering which gloves I disliked because the seams irritated my fingers. Me circling a typo in his presentation and writing CEO, learned punctuation in the margin. Him adding married an archivist, apparently beneath it. We teased each other. I also discovered that building an independent life did not magically make me industrious. I loved conservation. I despised expense forms, donor spreadsheets, and any meeting scheduled before coffee. Logan once found me glaring at a reimbursement portal for 10 full minutes. Problem? It wants receipts. That is usually how reimbursement works. I dislike systems that demand proof of my suffering. He took the laptop, uploaded the files in under a minute, and handed it back. I kissed his cheek. See? Marriage is teamwork. You delegated paperwork. Exactly. We argued over thermostat settings. I learned Logan hated olives and loved terrible courtroom dramas. He learned I hummed when repairing paper, and that I could not walk past a used bookstore without entering. The more I knew him, the less he resembled the cold husband from the novel, which made one thing hurt more. He still pulled away whenever desire sharpened. It happened first in the kitchen. I was standing on my toes, reaching for a jar on the top shelf. Logan came behind me. His chest brushed my back. His arm reached over my head. His scent surrounded me. My body went still. So did his. For one suspended second, neither of us moved. I turned. We were too close. His eyes lowered to my mouth. Mine did the same. I kissed him, not dramatically, just a soft press of lips. Logan made a sound low in his throat and kissed me back. His hand tightened around my waist. The kiss deepened by a breath. Heat moved through me, sweet and immediate. Then Logan stopped. He stepped back so suddenly the cold air between us felt enormous. I have to take a call, he said. His phone had not rung. I watched him leave the kitchen. The jar remained unopened on the counter. After that kitchen kiss, Logan became almost painfully attentive without coming any closer. He warmed my side of the bed with his hand before I climbed in, left water on my nightstand, and woke whenever I shifted in my sleep. Once half awake, I felt his fingers brush my hair back from my forehead. The touch was so tender that my chest ached. Then I turned toward him. His breathing caught. He withdrew his hand as if the softness itself had frightened him. That small retreat hurt more than another dramatic escape would have. It fit the same pattern without giving me anything solid enough to confront. The next morning, Logan cooked eggs, kissed my forehead, asked whether I needed the car, and behaved as if nothing had happened. I told myself not to read too much into it. That lasted until Caleb called. I have news, he said. Good news? Mason is hosting a foundation dinner in Newport this weekend. Dr. Walsh is invited. So are you, I groaned. Why? Because his family is funding conservation grants. Will Logan be there? No. I looked toward the study where Logan was taking a call. His profile showed through the glass doors, straight back, rolled shirt sleeves, one hand pressed to the desk, beautiful, distant whenever I wanted more. A stupid ache opened beneath my ribs. I'll go, I said. Caleb hesitated. You sound weird. I'm fine. You're never fine when you say fine. I'm evolving. That sounds worse. I ended the call. That evening, I told Logan about Newport. He was silent for 3 seconds. Mason's dinner. It's for conservation grants. I'll come. You have an investor retreat in Seattle. I can move it. No. His eyes sharpened. Elliot. You can't cancel everything because I leave Boston. I don't cancel everything. You donated a staircase because Mason spoke to me. It's not officially a staircase. Logan. He looked down at his dinner. For a moment he seemed oddly young. Then he said, I don't like you being there without me. Why? His fingers tightened around his fork. He almost answered. I saw the words reach his face and stop there. Then he said, Mason wants something. So do most people at fundraising dinners. He wants you. My breath caught. And you? I asked before I could stop myself. Logan looked at me. The room went still. What do you want? His gaze dropped to my mouth, then away. You know. No, I said softly. I don't think I do. Silence. He looked almost cornered. And then, because Logan Bennett could negotiate acquisitions but apparently not feelings, he stood and carried his plate to the sink. I have a call. Again. I watched him go. Something inside me cooled. Maybe Caleb was right about independence. Maybe Logan missed my attention, but not me in the way I wanted. Maybe affection was easy when it stayed safe. Maybe desire was the line he would never cross. I hated how much that thought hurt. Newport in winter looked like a memory someone had polished. The Atlantic was steel blue beneath a pale sky. Old mansions stood above the cliffs with stone facades, carved balconies, and windows reflecting the sea. Bare trees scratched dark lines against the horizon. The wind smelled of salt and snow. Mason's Family Foundation held the dinner at a private historic property near Bellevue Avenue, a restored Gilded Age mansion with Gothic revival details dramatic enough to satisfy my old-world cravings. I arrived with Caleb and Dr. Walsh. Logan was in Seattle. I knew because he had texted me from the plane. Landed then. Hotel then. Meeting moved to 7 then. What are you wearing? I stared at that one. Clothes. His reply came immediately. Cruel again. I smiled despite myself. The dinner was genuinely useful. Mason's Foundation planned to fund apprenticeships for manuscript conservation across New England. Dr. Walsh wanted me involved in designing the program. For the first time since transmigrating, I saw a future that belonged to me. Not original Elliot, not the novel, me. I could work. I could build expertise again. I could love Logan without making him my entire identity. The thought felt healthy. It also felt lonely. At 9, after speeches and dessert, guests moved into a long gallery overlooking the dark ocean. Mason found me near a window. You're different, he said. I turned. He held 2 glasses of water. Everyone keeps telling me that. Before, you only talked about Logan. That sounds exhausting. It was. Sorry. Mason laughed. I didn't mind. I was jealous. There it was. I sighed. Mason, I know you're married. Good start. I'm not asking you to leave him. Excellent continuation. He smiled, then grew serious. I just want you to know that if you ever become unhappy, you have people outside that marriage. The words were kind, maybe too kind. They touched the exact bruise I had been avoiding. I looked out at the black ocean. Do you think Logan loves me? Mason's silence answered before he did. I think Logan Bennett loves control. My chest tightened. That's not what I asked. No, I looked at him. Mason's expression softened. I think he's attached to you, deeply. But love should make you feel wanted, Elliot. Not managed. The kitchen kiss flashed through my mind, the bathroom door. The water running, Logan stepping back. I hated that Mason's words fit too neatly. My phone buzzed. Logan, call me. I stared. Another message. Please. The please changed everything. I stepped away from Mason and called. Logan answered immediately. Where are you? In the gallery. With Mason? I closed my eyes. How do you know? Silence. Logan, I saw a photograph. What photograph? Mason's Foundation posted one. I opened Instagram. There it was, a wide shot of the dinner gallery. I was barely visible in the background. Mason stood beside me. You found me in the background of a fundraising post? Yes. How long did that take? Not long. That is not reassuring. His breathing sounded uneven. Elliot, what? Come home. I looked through the glass at the winter sea. Something in his tone tugged hard at my chest. I'm staying overnight. The roads are icy. I'll send a car. Logan, a driver with snow tires. No, I'll come myself. You are in Seattle. I can leave. I stared at the phone. Your investor retreat starts tomorrow. I don't care. I went very still. Behind me, glasses clinked and people laughed. Why? I whispered. Silence again. Then Logan said, because I can't sleep when I don't know you're home. My heart stopped, not literally, probably, he continued, voice low. I know that sounds unreasonable. It does. I'm trying not to make it your problem. You're doing badly, I know. Despite everything, I smiled. Then he said, are you happy there? The question was different, vulnerable. Yes, I admitted. I like the work, then stay. I blinked. What? Stay if you're happy. His voice tightened around the words. I'll deal with myself. For several seconds I could not speak. This was not control. Not entirely. This was a man trying to loosen his grip even while every instinct told him not to. My chest ached with sudden tenderness. Logan? Yes, I miss you. Silence. Then the softest exhale. You do? Don't sound so shocked. You've been practicing independence like it's an Olympic event. I can be independent and miss my husband. I support this philosophy. I laughed. He did too. That night, I slept in a guest room overlooking the ocean with Logan's voice still warm in my ear. At 6 the next morning, someone knocked. I opened the door wearing a robe and one sock. Logan stood in the hallway. I stared. He looked exhausted. Dark coat, travel bag, coffee in one hand. You were in Seattle. I was. You said you'd deal with yourself. I dealt with myself by taking a red eye. I covered my face. He looked almost guilty. I brought coffee. That does not make this normal. I also brought a croissant. I lowered my hands. What kind almond? I stepped aside. You may enter. His smile was tired and beautiful. As he passed, his shoulder brushed mine. My body warmed instantly. This time, when he set the coffee down, I wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. Logan froze. Then his hands covered mine. He leaned back against me with a quiet breath. I thought you were done doing this, he said. I'm experimenting. With what? Balanced clinginess. Terrible concept. You flew across the country because I spent one night in Rhode Island. Fair point. I rested my forehead between his shoulder blades. Logan? Yes? I'm glad you came. His fingers tightened around mine. So am I. For a few minutes, neither of us moved. Outside, dawn slowly turned the Atlantic silver. The red-eye incident should have reassured me. Mostly it did. Then I kissed him. Logan kissed me back, one hand sliding around my waist as his cedar scent deepened. Every omega instinct in me leaned toward him. And at the exact moment his control slipped, he stopped. Wait, I pulled back. You keep doing that. Elliot, every time we get close, you disappear. I'm trying to be careful. With me? Yes. Why? He looked away. That silence hurt more than the word wait. I went upstairs alone and locked the bedroom door. A few minutes later he knocked. Then 2 messages appeared. Please let me explain tomorrow. I'm not rejecting you. I wanted to believe him, but fear prefers patterns to evidence, and mine was clear. Affection, desire, retreat. The next morning, I moved several suits into the guest dressing room. Not because I planned to leave, I told myself, but because I needed room to think. Logan saw the garment bags and went pale. I need space, I said. He nodded once. All right. He left for work without breakfast. The silence after the door closed felt worse than any argument. The mistake with the ring. That afternoon, Caleb called while I was staring at my wedding ring. The Cloisters fundraiser is Friday, he reminded me. You're still going, right? I don't know. What happened? I told him. Not everything. Enough. Caleb was silent. Then he said, Have you considered asking Logan directly why he pulls away? I did. No, you asked while already hurt. That's different. I hated when reasonable people used reasonable words against me. He won't answer. Then tell him you need an answer. I might not like it. That's adulthood. Adulthood is overrated. Strongly agree. He paused. Mason will be at the fundraiser. Of course he will. Try not to accidentally start a war between rich men. I'll do my best. That evening, Logan did not come home until after midnight. He slept in the study. The next morning, I found coffee waiting outside my door. No note. That hurt worse. By Friday, the house felt like a beautifully furnished misunderstanding. I dressed for the fundraiser alone. Before leaving, I took off my wedding ring because I planned to help inspect a display installation and did not want to scratch anything. Then, looking at the ring in my palm, I made an impulsive decision. A stupid one. I placed it in its velvet box with a note. You deserve space too. Keep this safe for me until we talk properly. I asked a driver to deliver it to Logan's Manhattan office, where he had a strategy dinner that evening. In my head, the message was clear. Keep it safe until we talk. In Logan Bennett's head, apparently, I had filed for divorce by stationery. Which brought us back to the Met Cloisters. Back to the stone archway. Back to his rain-soaked coat and my ring in his hand. Back to the question that had stopped my heart. Tell me what I did wrong before I lose my mind. This time, I answered. You keep leaving me when I want you. Logan went still. I forced myself not to look away. Every time we get close, you stop, you walk away. You say you need a call or water or air or anything except me. Understanding hit his face. Then horror. Elliot. I thought you were disgusted. His expression broke completely. No. The word came out rough. Then why? He glanced around at the guests. Not here. You came here. I was panicking. I noticed. His eyes closed briefly. Then he took my hand. Come with me. We walked through a quiet corridor toward an enclosed courtyard, where winter rain silvered the stone. No one followed. Logan stopped beneath the covered arcade. For once, there was no polished CEO left in his face. Only my husband. I pull away because I'm afraid I'll overwhelm you, he said. I stared. What? You're sensitive to strong alpha pheromones. You always have been. The first year we were married, your doctor warned me that high concentrations of alpha pheromones could trigger migraines or fainting, especially during your heat cycle. Memory stirred. A clinic. A physician explaining hormone sensitivity. Original Elliot laughing it off. Logan taking notes, he continued. When we get close, my control gets worse. His voice dropped, much worse. Heat touched my cheeks. I leave because I need time to calm down, not because I don't want you. How much worse? He gave me a look. Oh yes. I leaned against the stone pillar. So all this time. I have been trying very hard not to frighten you, I began laughing. I could not help it. Logan stared at me. I laughed harder, covering my face. This is not funny. It's a little funny. I thought you were leaving me, and I thought you were politely enduring me. His face tightened again. Enduring you? Yes, he stepped closer. Elliot, I reorganized my entire executive schedule because you like lunch at 1. I lowered my hands. I converted the unused back library into a climate-controlled conservation room because you complained that working at the dining table made you nervous. What? The humidity system was finished yesterday. That room has 18th century paneling. I was told not to drill into it, you asked. I hired a preservation architect. I stared at him. That is insane. I know. He took another breath. I know which floorboard wakes you near the bedroom door. I know you pretend to like black coffee when you're trying to impress people, but you hate it. I know you hum the same 4 notes when you're concentrating. I know you move your left hand when you sleep if you're searching for me. My heart began pounding. Logan, I know when you're at the Athenaeum because I checked the car's location. I stared. He looked ashamed. And your phone, excuse me? You turned on family location sharing after you got lost in Manhattan last year. I was 3 blocks from the hotel. You called me crying. I was hungry. His mouth twitched, then faded. You gave me access. You did not give me permission to treat the blue dot like a vital sign. How often? He hesitated. Sometimes every 10 minutes. I stared. That is surveillance with good tailoring. I know. I'm not proud of it. Then we change it. We share locations when one of us travels. At home, you ask. If I turn it off, you respect that. He nodded. Agreed. Say it like a CEO signing something painful. I agree to the terms. Better. The mighty Alpha CEO, destroyer of quarterly targets, was embarrassed. Something warm and ridiculous bloomed in my chest. You're worse than I am. Yes. You absolute hypocrite. Yes, I stepped closer. You let everyone think I'm the obsessive one. I was trying to protect your reputation. By ruining mine? Poorly executed. I poked his chest. He caught my hand, and then the humor disappeared again. His thumb brushed over my bare ring finger. Don't send this back to me again. His voice was soft, not commanding. Afraid, I swallowed. I wasn't giving it back. You wrote that I deserved space. I meant for 1 evening. I nearly canceled a financing call worth 9 figures. You did cancel dinner. I canceled dessert. That is still dramatic. I panicked. The title of my own disaster practically appeared in the air between us. I squeezed his hand. Logan, I don't want a divorce. His eyes closed. The breath that left him sounded like he had been holding it for 12 days. When he opened them, they were bright. Say it again. I don't want a divorce. His forehead touched mine. Again. I smiled. I want my ridiculous, controlling, secretly clinger-than-me alpha husband. That wording is hostile. It's accurate. His arms wrapped around my waist. This time, when I kissed him, he did not pull away. He stopped only long enough to ask, Are you sure? I answered by tugging his tie. His eyes darkened. Elliot, I'm sure. The kiss that followed was warm rather than wild, deep rather than desperate. It tasted faintly of coffee and rain. His hand stayed careful at my waist. Mine slid into his damp hair. For the first time, desire did not feel like a door closing. It felt like trust opening. When we finally separated, I rested my cheek against his chest. His heartbeat was still too fast. So, I murmured, what happens to Mason? Logan's arms tightened. I donate more money to his foundation than he does, and make him thank me publicly. I laughed into his coat. Do not ruin his life. I was not planning to. What were you planning? To make him thank me into a microphone. I laughed harder. That is petty. I prefer strategic philanthropy. The week after the Cloisters fundraiser, our marriage became honest enough to be embarrassing. Honesty produced conversations such as, I dislike Daniel's hair. Why? It looks approachable. That is not a crime. It should be. Or, the new Omega consultant touched your sleeve. He removed lint. I remained suspicious of lint. We were not normal. We were, however, communicating. That turned out to be much more useful. Logan also explained the part of our history I had never known. We had first met 3 years earlier at a Boston Public Library donor preview. Original Elliot had been bored, overdressed, and hiding in a restricted gallery to escape a group of alphas his parents wanted him to meet. Logan, then running a much smaller Bennett Atlantic, had walked in while looking for a quiet place to rehearse an investor pitch. Elliot had informed him that his tie was ugly. Logan had asked whether Elliot planned to improve it. Elliot had removed his own silk pocket square and tied it around Logan's wrist for luck. Logan still had it. He showed me one night. The fabric was faded at the fold. "You kept this? You told me to." I was probably joking. I wasn't. He had fallen first, long before Hale money mattered, long before marriage. When Elliot's father later offered to invest in Bennett Atlantic during a difficult expansion year, Logan had accepted only after negotiating a separate agreement making the marriage financially independent from the investment. "He wanted to buy you security," Logan said. "I wanted to make sure no one could say I bought you." The original novel had never shown that contract, maybe because the narrator had not known. Maybe because stories were dangerous when we mistook limited perspective for truth. I knew something about damaged documents. Missing pages changed everything. So did missing conversations. At the end of March, after weeks of supervised work, documented assessments, and Dr. Walsh making me prove every skill twice, I accepted a paid program consulting role, helping launch a manuscript conservation fellowship funded by several New England donors. Logan pretended to be calm when I told him. "You'll travel?" he asked. "Sometimes. How sometimes?" "New York, Providence, maybe Washington, D.C. He nodded slowly. "I support your career. You look ill. I'm adapting." I walked around his desk and sat on his lap. His arms closed around me immediately. "Better? Yes. You're impossible. You married me. I would do it again." My teasing stopped. His eyes held mine. "I would," he repeated. Something tender moved through me. I touched his cheek. "Then ask me properly." His brow furrowed. "We're already married. I know. I missed the first proposal. Because another Elliot had received it. The thought was bittersweet. And this time I refused to build happiness on another missing conversation. That night, after dinner, I asked Logan to sit with me in the study. Rain tapped softly against the windows. The new conservation room beyond the hall still smelled faintly of cedar shelving and clean plaster. I held my tea with both hands because otherwise I might have fled my own confession. "There is something I have not told you." Logan's posture changed immediately. "If this is about Mason, it is not about Mason. Daniel, your jealousy has remarkable stamina. I am listening." I looked at him, at the man who had spent 12 days terrified I would vanish one habit at a time. He deserved the truth, even if the truth sounded impossible. "I woke up 12 days ago believing I was someone else." He did not interrupt, so I told him, not with grand language, not with claims I could prove. I told him about Chicago, about working as a museum archivist and paper conservator, about falling asleep over accession forms. I told him about opening my eyes in Beacon Hill, with a different history inside my body and fragments of Elliot Hale's memories arriving like loose pages. I told him about the serialized novel I had read, the version of our marriage that ended in divorce, and the fear that had made me treat that unfinished story like prophecy. When I finished, the room felt impossibly quiet. Logan sat with his forearms on his knees, staring at the floor. I tried to joke because terror made me stupid. "You may now request neurological imaging." He looked up. "Do you believe you are Elliot?" The question hurt more than I expected. I do not know what word is correct. I have his body, some of his memories, his instincts, but I remember another life too. I know how that sounds. Logan was silent for several seconds. Then he asked, "Do you still hate olives?" I blinked. "What? Olives? Yes. Do you still hum 4 notes when you work?" "Apparently." "Do you still steal my coffee after insisting you do not want any?" "That is resource sharing." His mouth moved. I stared at him. "Logan, I am serious. So am I." He came closer and crouched in front of my chair. "I cannot tell you what happened to you. I cannot verify another life. But I know you changed 12 days ago. I noticed before breakfast." My throat tightened. He continued, quieter. "You looked at me like I was a stranger and still leaned toward my scent when you were tired. You knew things you had never studied, and you forgot things your body remembered. I thought you were frightened. I thought pushing you for answers would make it worse. You noticed all that? I noticed when you changed shampoo. Right, obsessive alpha. I forgot. His hand settled carefully over mine. Whatever name explains it, the man sitting in front of me is the man I love now. My vision blurred. What about the Elliot before? Pain moved across his face, gentle and complicated. I loved him too. Maybe you are him changed by something I do not understand. Maybe you are someone new carrying pieces of him. I will not pretend I know. His thumbs brushed my knuckles. But love is not a museum label, Elliot. I do not need a perfect classification before I know what I feel. That was such an archivist-specific answer from a cybersecurity CEO that I started crying and laughing at the same time. Terrible metaphor, I whispered. I had limited preparation. You did fine. He rested his forehead against my hands. For the first time since waking in this world, the secret stopped pressing against my ribs. I want one memory of choosing you entirely as myself, I said. Logan lifted his head. Then he understood. That weekend, he took me to the Boston Public Library. We stood in the courtyard near the fountain, while evening light warmed the stone arches. No photographers, no board members, no family, just us. He took my ring from his pocket again. I laughed. You really enjoy carrying that around. I'm traumatized. Fair. Then he got down on one knee. My smile vanished. His did too. Elliot Hale, he said. You are difficult, impulsive, jealous, brilliant with old paper, terrible at answering texts when you're working, and the only person who has ever made every place I live feel like home. My eyes burned, he continued. I don't want less of you. I want the honest version, the independent version, the clingy version, the one who argues with me about tracking software and steals my coffee and falls asleep on my shoulder. His voice softened. Choose me again. I covered my mouth. Around us, water moved quietly in the fountain. Yes, I whispered. His eyes warmed. Again. I laughed through tears. Yes, Logan. He slid the ring onto my finger. This time I remembered every second. Mason's defeat involved a microphone, a donor plaque, and the most painfully polite smile I had ever seen. It was devastating in the very specific way only wealthy philanthropy could be. He had spent months championing a conservation fellowship and expected his family foundation to receive the evening's major recognition. Logan quietly doubled the program's funding through Bennett Atlantic. Then he insisted Mason remain honorary chair, which meant Mason had to stand on stage, smile for cameras, and thank my husband for his extraordinary generosity to cultural preservation. From our table, Logan applauded politely. I leaned toward him. You're enjoying this too much. I'm supporting museums. You're evil. Public institutions matter. I laughed so hard Caleb nearly spilled his drink. Later, Mason found me alone near the terrace. He looked resigned rather than angry. I suppose he really does love you. He does. And you love him. Unfortunately, Mason smiled. I deserved that. No, you deserve the donation speech. That was cruel. I warned you about strategic philanthropy. He raised his glass in surrender. There was no feud, no dramatic enemy. Just a man who had wanted someone already taken, and finally understood the door was closed. Life became quieter after that. Better. I worked 3 days a week in conservation, and traveled occasionally for the fellowship. Logan still checked my location more than any reasonable person should, but now he sent messages like, I checked the map. I'm being weird. Ignore me. And I replied, proud of your self-awareness. Still weird. Love you. He stopped pretending he disliked my clinginess. I stopped pretending I didn't love his. Some mornings I ate breakfast downstairs. Some mornings I demanded pancakes in bed. Some afternoons I worked at the Athenaeum. Others I used the conservation room Logan had built at home, where the humidity stayed steady, the lighting was archival safe, and a small brass plaque appeared one morning on the inside of the door. Elliot's room. Ask before entering. I found Logan in the study. You put a boundary sign on a room in your own house. I am learning. I kissed him for that. And sometimes I occupied the antique desk beside Logan's office window, feet tucked beneath me while he ran a company and reached over every 10 minutes to touch my knee. We traveled to New York, Seattle, Washington, D.C., and back to Newport. We argued about luggage. We kissed in elevators. We got lost in the American wing at the Met because Logan refused to admit he had taken the wrong staircase. We spent rainy Sundays reading in Beacon Hill while the city turned gray beyond the windows. And sometimes, late at night, I thought about the novel. About the Elliot who had been written as a joke. The obsessive Omega, the spoiled husband, the future divorce. I wondered whether I had changed his ending or merely discovered the parts the original story had failed to see. Maybe it did not matter. Love was never one dramatic confession anyway. It was 1,000 small corrections. A question asked instead of assumed. A hand reached across 6 inches of mattress. A phone call answered. A ring returned to the correct finger. One April evening, I came home late from New York. The townhouse was dark except for the study lamp. Logan was asleep on the sofa in his shirt sleeves, laptop still open, waiting for me. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, then I crossed the room, climbed carefully into his lap, and tucked my face against his neck. His arms closed around me before he fully woke. "Elliot, I'm home." His breathing eased. "Good." I smiled against his skin. "Missed me?" He opened one eye. "I checked your flight 4 times. Only 4? I'm healing." I laughed. He kissed my forehead. Outside, Boston rain tapped softly against the windows. Inside, I listened to his heart beneath my ear. I had transmigrated into a story about an obsessed Omega who was supposed to lose his alpha husband by holding on too tightly. Instead, I learned something much more inconvenient. My alpha had been holding on just as tightly from the beginning. He had simply been better at hiding his hands, and once we stopped hiding, neither of us wanted to let go. Extra story. 1 year later, the marriage with 2 tracking problems. 1 year after Logan proposed to me for the 2nd time, I discovered a small black velvet box on my breakfast tray. I looked at him suspiciously. "What did you do?" "Why do you assume guilt?" "Experience." We were spending a long weekend in Newport, staying at a quiet hotel near the Cliff Walk. Morning sunlight spilled across the room. Beyond the windows, the Atlantic flashed blue between old stone buildings and bare spring branches. Logan sat beside me in a gray sweater, looking far too innocent. I opened the box. Inside was a slim silver bracelet. Beautiful, minimal, suspicious. I lifted it. "Is this jewelry or surveillance?" "Yes." I stared at him. He smiled. "It has an optional location chip. Logan, you lose your phone. Once. 3 times. Those other times were philosophical separations." He held the bracelet out instead of fastening it. "You do not have to wear it, and the location sharing stays off unless you turn it on." That mattered. I looked at the bracelet, then at him. "Do you have one?" He hesitated. I narrowed my eyes. 5 minutes later, Logan Bennett, Alpha CEO, feared negotiator, professionally intimidating human skyscraper, was wearing a matching tracking bracelet because marriage required equality. I checked the app. His location appeared beside mine. Logan 0 feet away. I laughed. "What?" he asked. "Nothing. I just enjoy knowing exactly where my husband is." His eyes narrowed. "You're mocking me." "Never. You are." I leaned over and kissed his cheek. He caught my waist before I could retreat and pulled me against him. "Breakfast first." I protested. "You started it." I kissed your cheek. Dangerous behavior. He kissed me properly, slowly, warmly. Outside, waves broke against the Rhode Island coast. Inside, the pancakes cooled while I curled into my husband's arms and decided breakfast could survive 5 more minutes. We had no dramatic new crisis. No villain, no divorce papers, no tragic misunderstanding waiting in the hallway. There were only ordinary things: work trips, grocery lists, museum dinners, Logan pretending not to be jealous of historians, me pretending not to enjoy it, late-night movies, shared coffee, rainy mornings, and 2 location dots that were usually very close together. Sometimes happiness was not a grand ending. Sometimes it was simply knowing that after every journey, someone would be there beneath a warm lamp, waiting for the sound of your key in the door. Logan rested his forehead against mine. "Where are you going today?" he asked. "The Preservation Society meeting." "Without me?" "Yes." His mouth turned down. I tapped the silver bracelet on his wrist. "Don't worry. I'll know where you are." He stared at me for 1 second. Then he laughed. I was still clingy. He was still worse. We were still learning and happy. If you enjoyed keeping us company, follow the channel for another story. For now, I had a husband to kiss and pancakes to save.